Thank you, Christy. We're really excited to be with you all today, and don't pause your eating for us. This is just a casual fireside chat of sorts to talk about a unique brick and mortar scenario in historic downtown buildings. We're going to talk about the opportunities and challenges when it comes to these design spaces, and they're here to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. So as we're looking at tackling restoring buildings that are 75 to 100 years old, there's a lot of original architecture and character that we want to balance with modern operational needs and aesthetic choices. So the Main Street program is one of the largest driving forces behind preserving architecture and historic buildings. The Main Street is a national program that was founded in the 1980s to intentionally build economic strategies that balance historic preservation and revitalization in a downtown historic area. We know that these are the buildings that are the foundations of our cities, where the very first buildings are made, and that it's important to preserve those stories and histories. So locally, our program takes part in this through monitoring and regulating through the city's historic design guidelines, through the city codes and ordinances, to assure that these buildings retain their architectural features and character. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And I want to give the business owners an opportunity to talk about their business and share why they chose a historic building in downtown.
Okay, I'll go first. As Sara mentioned, my name is Terra James, and I am the owner-operator of Hello Baby, which is a children's brick-and-mortar hybrid online boutique downtown Plainview. The address is 509 Broadway, and we are on the Courthouse Square. So I started my business in 2016 in half of another retail space downtown on 7th Street, and quickly outgrew that space. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I need to find a bigger space. I still want to be downtown, but where? And it took a while. And one day I was driving down Broadway and I thought, I drive by this building every single day and it has this same flyer in the window. So I stopped a couple times, looked in, and then I got on Hale County Automation and found out who owned the building. And I called my husband one day and said, I'm going to this address. If you don't hear from me in 30 minutes, call the police. And I went to the gentleman's residence, knocked on the door, and said, I'd like to buy your building downtown, but I'm not a crazy person. I already have a business. And he was like, that building? There's no AC, there's no electricity, blah, blah, blah. And I said, it's okay, no problem. Let's talk about it. And we'll get into more detail in a minute about the renovation process of that building, but it had been vacant for 30 years. And I knew at that moment it was going to take some time and I had to be patient, but it's exactly where I wanted to be. And amongst that same time, we were starting as a city to talk about the revitalization of downtown. And so I knew there was going to be a crosswalk at that location, and I thought, this is it. My heart is set on it, and I was going to work really hard to make it happen. You're next.
Okay. My name is Chris Williams. I am the owner-operator. Did I say that right? Okay. At Cavalier Men's Provisions. It is 613 Broadway, so just a block over from Terra. I'm kind of a baby business. We opened in November 2023, so I still don't really know what I'm doing. I think it's going okay. Just checking in with Terra every once in a while. Kind of call her Mama Terra on all those things. But so this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I still have another 9 to 5 that keeps me pretty busy. And so why not add this in there too? So there's been a couple people that have been knowing I've been wanting to do this, having like a men's retail space here, just really because of lack of options. And ever since I was 2 or 3 years old, I just kind of loved walking around with a bow tie, and I've loved clothing since then. So that was always a passion project for me. So when I was able to come across this building, a couple people told me about it. One of them is this person sitting to my left, your right, over last summer. And so it was kind of serendipitous. I knew the person that was selling it. She was kind of changing courses. And for me wanting to always do this, I did want something downtown because I felt like that's where things were moving. The city is doing a really good job about kind of updating downtown, the streetscapes. There's a lot of cool stuff going downtown. So for me to succeed, or me thinking I was going to succeed, I wanted a cool spot downtown. And so I was lucky enough to come across this building. I did not have near as much of the work that Terra did. Mine was an operating business up until 2021. So I did have some things going on inside, but it's a great building. Had great bones. I had to do very minimal work on the inside. So yeah, that's kind of my story behind that.
Okay, I'm Sherrie King, and I own a farmer's insurance agency. However, I don't own my building like these two, and I didn't have to do any renovations. It had not been vacant. It had been other things like an attorney's office, and I'm not sure what else now. In the very beginning, though, that building, it was built in the 20s. And it used to house Plainview Daily Herald. And I have the coolest picture in my lobby of how it used to look. If you drive downtown today, it's at 801 Broadway. And it's a peculiar grayish blue and has pink trim. I did not do that. I'm not quite sure who did that painting, but anyway, I was in higher education for 29 years, and about the end of 2019, I thought, I want to do something different. And someone said, well, there's a book of business or a book of insurance that's for sale. She's retiring. I think you would be good at that. And I thought, no, that's not what I want to do. But we ended up doing that. We opened in March of 2020, right before COVID started. I was in Arizona in training and almost didn't get home. But I wanted to be in downtown. These guys weren't quite there yet. Terra was there, just didn't own the new building yet. But I've always loved old buildings, downtown areas in different cities that I've been in. And I knew, I don't remember exactly why or how I knew this, but I had this feeling that downtown was going to be the place to be. And it is. I love that I can leave my office and say, hey, I'll be back in a little while. I might walk down to Cavalier. I might walk down to Hello Baby or It's a Girl Thing or Betty Faye, have a glass of wine, come back, do some shopping, whatever. And it's all just right down there together. And I think that's the coolest thing. Just come down and visit us this afternoon. We'll all be around.
Thank you all. There's certainly a lot of opportunities and challenges because there is a wide variety in how long and the state of these buildings. Like Terra said, some of them have had their doors closed for 30 plus years, and some of them were transitional businesses. So it's really a mixed bag of what you can get for downtown buildings. And on that, let's talk broad about the challenges of renovations. And I'll aim this at Terra in particular, because you've already completed one project and you're looking at facing the next one. So what are our biggest challenges when talking about the significance of historic buildings?
Okay, so I would say first and foremost, a lot of these older buildings, especially if they've been vacant, similar to what I've experienced, is they're not up to code. And there are two types of codes. There's new construction code and then there's existing building code. And so finding what it is that you are going to have to bring up to code will determine whether or not you can do the project, right? So what I did is when I met with Mr. Moore and we went through the building, it was being used as storage. And this gentleman had vintage arcade machines, 30,000 records, there was jukeboxes, it was amazing. And when I had that initial meeting with him, we brought in code, the fire marshal, HVAC, plumbing, and we did a whole look before I even said yes to purchasing it to make sure I could even do it. Like financially, is this even possible? And the city was really easy to work with when I did the pre-meeting. So it's called a courtesy walkthrough. And basically they were like, yeah, clean up some electricity. You obviously have no HVAC, so you're going to need to install that. And so the plumber was there and he said, this is how much it's going to cost approximately. And I did buy my building in 2020 when the cost of everything skyrocketed. So the budget was skewed. In the term, after I purchased the building, then I was really excited about the facade. And I hired an architect. We went to the drawing board and I wanted to paint my facade. Had the if you drive down Broadway, you'll see the sign. And it was the same sign. Keep the awning. This building has a beautiful awning. Originally, it was 2 buildings. In the 50s, it became 1. So it's a really large space. And I took it to City Hall and was like, here's my design. Isn't it beautiful? Don't you love it? And they're like, yeah, no, you can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean I can't do it? So what I wish I would have known in the beginning is it is a historic area. There are things I cannot do. And I'm pretty stubborn. And so I was like, no, I'm going to paint this brick and I'm going to find out how I can paint this brick. But just like if you've ever built a home, do you know a person that's built a home and they're like, that was so fun and fantastic. I want to do it again right now. Oh, Gretchen, wow. There were a lot of challenges that came up. Like we went to move the plumbing downtown. All of our city main waters run in the front sidewalk because years ago they decided to move it from the alley to the front. Well, I only have 1 bathroom and it's on the alley wall. So it didn't make sense in a 30-year-old building or a 100-year-old building that had been sitting vacant for 30 years to just turn the water on with concrete foundation. So I said, hey, city, can I abandon the water main in the front and tie in the alley? They're like, yeah, there's water in the alley. There was no water in the alley. So we ended up having to put in some water in the alley, some water mains in the alley, and the city worked really closely with me on that. It was a finished project fall of 20, I can't remember. It's all running together now. And since then, we've moved on to 505 Broadway, which is right next door, formerly known as the White's Auto Building. And having done the historic process with 509, I now knew kind of what route to go with 505. And basically you need to move on.
No, I do want to highlight that. Specifically, I would like to talk about the White's Auto Building. Since you're looking at that renovation project, and there is some significant architectural design choices in that building, on the facade in particular, and if you could just speak about how you're preserving some of those elements,
yes,
or looking at preserving them.
So 505 Broadway, formerly the White's Auto Building, is an iconic building in Plainview. Everybody knows it. They probably shopped there. Even though it hasn't been operating as a business, it still has the original neon letters on the front that says White's Auto. And those letters are really cool. And the facade is really cool, but the facade is a mid-century slip cover. So it's these tiles, metal tiles that were put on the front. The original brick was removed, and then they put these tiles up. Well, there's no insulation behind it. The frame is starting to rot. It has French drains. So when the French drains were leaking, or at the top where the roof is, it's ruined the hardwood floors. Like, there's some challenges that once we got in and started uncovering things, we were like, oh boy, this might be a little more than we expected. But what we are intentionally proposing to do is to restore the White's Auto letters. We want to keep that is so iconic. We need new signage for the new building, but we want to keep those White's Auto letters. So we're going to have them retrofitted to LED lights. It's exposed neon. So I don't know how they lasted for as long as they did, but the neon is on the outside of the letter. So one hailstorm and the neon's busted. We are going to retrofit them LED and then move them inside on one of the walls and mount them to the wall so you can still see that sign and the sign will stay with the building. And then we're in the approval process for the facade to see if we can do any changes. Those windows are massive and they are single pane glass, so they're really dangerous and there's a liability there. So we will need to replace them, and in the process of replacing, we're looking at restructuring how the windows are designed, but keeping the amount of window space that's there. So working closely with the city, and then the Texas Main Street program offers some architecture support programs to help with the design process and making sure that it meets the historical standards and all of those things. So my one piece of advice is there's always a solution. It may not be the solution that you were originally hoping for, but you have to ask questions. And when the answer is, well, you can't do that. Okay, why? Can you explain why? Or point me in a direction where there's a similar result. Can we work together to accomplish this? If I need an architect, do you have some suggestions of who in our area I could contact or who specializes in that? Because these old buildings, like you said, have really, really amazing bones, but there's challenges that they didn't have when they were originally built that we do face now. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much. On that note, thinking how many significant changes and updates that have to be made for some of these historic buildings, Sherrie, would you like to talk about the insurance requirements that it takes for a historic building?
Okay. So these buildings, a lot of them have been sitting vacant for like 30 years, maybe even more, some of them. And when they were built, the type of electrical, plumbing, those kinds of things that are in those buildings are archaic. And insurance companies don't want to insure those old types of wiring and plumbing. So you do have to think about that. A lot of them want those updated within the last maybe 20 years, 10 years, because that is a risk that insurance see as something that they won't insure unless those things have been updated. Also, a lot of these have, you may have tall ceilings, different ways of remodeling that have been done or not been done, and a lot of those things are something that insurance companies look at when we're trying to make sure that you're covered, but that their risk is not as much of a risk as they don't want to have. So those are important things to look at.
Thank you, Sherrie. We've talked a lot about the challenges that there are with historic buildings, but our district in downtown in particular has a lot of great opportunities as being a business there and having a brick and mortar. So I want to aim a question at Chris to talk about a little bit of his marketing brand strategy and how you incorporate your built environment in that, because I know you have some great content. So.
Yeah, my marketing is a little stupid if you haven't seen it. There's a lot of me in my underwear for whatever reason. I don't know why that's out there. But typically in the background, you do see the building. But yeah, I was blessed with a pretty awesome building. So like I said, it has great bones. It's got some like exposed like metal on the ceiling and the steel girders and all that kind of stuff. And so for the look that I was going with, I didn't really have to do anything with that. It's got some great like pieces of tin on the roof, and it's a 2-story building, and then the second story has different colors of tin up there, and so I really wish that was lower because that's the main sales floor. But then I've got exposed brick, which that's always the hot topic. People love exposed brick, guys. So I've got exposed brick throughout and some little places on the walls, and so all of that kind of really contributed to kind of a really classic men's vibe. And so what I really wanted to do with that is I wanted to, when you walked in from, outside Plainview, when you came inside, and what I hear a lot now is like, it doesn't feel like I'm in Plainview. I'm like, I think that's good. Plainview's awesome, but, if you're walking inside, I hear a lot, like, it feels like I'm in like Fredericksburg or Colorado. I'm like, well, that's dope. That's pretty awesome, because those places are pretty known for some pretty awesome stores. So you can use some of that, that old building to your advantage in some of those things, because I didn't really have to do a lot of big stuff to that. I really just used the character of the building in like my marketing. And so it has a really cool stair rail in there. Lights. It did have some green shag carpets. I took that out. Sorry, guys, if that's your jam. Tyke Dippery, that's his jam, guys. He loves some green shag carpet. It wasn't even on the stairs. It was on the side of the stairs. I don't know what that was about. But yeah, for the most part, I did try to incorporate the main bones of the building in the marketing that I provide, just because it already looks so cool.
Thank you for that, Chris. On the topic, since you are the newest, relatively newest on the block, you recently put up a sign, a pretty great sign. Can you talk a little bit more about like that process and the consideration that you took with your facade choices in regards to the entire district?
Yeah. So we did put up a sign. And if you haven't ever done a sign, they're very expensive. They're so expensive. You're looking at what the pieces it includes. It's very expensive. But I wanted something, and in my logo, I wanted something to be a little bit more classy that would kind of stay for a while. And then I also wanted something, as you're driving down, that's big enough that you would recognize it. And then, talking to Terra, I also wanted something kind of similar to hers. That's at night, it's lit up. Because when you're driving downtown at night and you see some of the signs that are lit up versus the ones that aren't, it just looks really awesome. And so that was some of the things to consider. And because my brick is red, I didn't want a color that kind of clashed with that. And so I kind of went with like a navy blue that looks really good against that brick. It's big enough that you really can't miss it. The color choice was a good choice for the brick. I tend to kind of peacock a lot. I like really bright colors, but I wanted something a little bit more classic that kind of fits the vibe of the building, that could be on the outside of the building for a long time, to kind of preserve that on the outside as well too. So when you guys do come downtown later, because you are going to come downtown later, you will be able to see that in person.
I have something to add to that. So if you are considering purchasing or renovating a historic building, there's a reason. Like maybe you love the charm, or you know that there's some really fun hidden secrets inside the building. Same thing. In 509 Broadway, the interior walls were stuccoed at some point, and behind that stucco, there was red brick. And when we pulled up all of the really wonderful asbestos tile, not we, I hired somebody to do that, so I didn't get in trouble, but there was also concrete brick or concrete floors underneath that. Well, I feel like having something historic has charm and character, but when you add a sign to your building that's backlit or lights up at night, that's more of like the modern piece of it that you would see in like a new strip center that's a new construction development.
And that's really what we're aiming for, is balancing those historic properties with those modern choices, so that you feel that you get a character of the history and also that progressive feeling. So thank you guys so much for all your comments today. Any last thoughts or advice?
Don't be scared. Just do it. And if you know anyone that maybe has a building downtown and isn't utilizing it, encourage them to meet with Main Street. There's lots of people that are interested in buying properties downtown. And we know that there's many that aren't being utilized, and we would love to see those change and transition into more retail spaces or eateries for us to enjoy, and for those in surrounding areas to come and enjoy. So this is just a starting point for downtown Plainview. We can't wait to see what the future holds, and please come and shop with us later.
And to piggyback on that, if you're looking at some of these buildings and you're doing your initial walkthrough, sometimes it is a little daunting. So I would encourage you to bring somebody that has done this. You know, I mean, I walked through, and for the most part, I was pretty good. But then I did bring in somebody like Terra that has done this before, and that does help immensely because they can kind of walk you through the process. It is still a little scary. There was a lot of times where I left the bank and I went to Hello Baby and I crawled under the register in the fetal position for hours trying to figure out how to do this. But it is worth it. You can get through it, but having some other people that have done it does make it a lot easier.
Well, thank you guys for your time today, and I want to say that any of the business owners in downtown are always happy to share their stories with you and their love for their buildings and the district. So take a chance to stop and meet with them, ask them questions, business owner to business owner or future business owner. And the Main Street program is always here to provide resources and opportunities for renovating these buildings and guiding you through the process, challenges and opportunities included. So thank you guys for being here and for chatting with us.
I have one more thing.
Absolutely.
Imagine that.
Go for it.
The other thing I was going to say is there is a reason for a bureaucratic process, and it's important that we all follow that because even though we're like just big enough that there are really important rules that we need to follow, but we're small in terms of still growing our downtown area or revitalizing our downtown area. So as much as an individual could be like, oh man, I can't believe that the city told me that, we have to work in unison with them. And that way there is a clear brand of what we have to offer, what our community has to offer, and what our downtown has to offer. So if you're not sure of what that bureaucratic process looks like or what those code enforcement rules look like, please seek them out before you do anything. It'll be way easier and less stress for you and for them. I mean, I've stressed myself out plenty of times about it. I'm like, oh, okay, I should have asked that first. But just make sure we have to do this together, and together means in conjunction with the city and as an individual.
Thank you, Terra. And thank you all for your time today. Thanks.